What do we do when we've tried everything? Everything that we know how to do to shift some aspect of ourselves or our life and nothing works. What do we do with that? We've tried talking to the person, we've tried talking to ourselves, we've tried exercising, we've tried meditating, we've tried changing our diet, we've tried changing our job, we've tried changing where we live, we tried changing our kids, and nothing works. What do we do? I want to share with you one practice that works every single time we do it. Now, it's not easy per se, but it is simple, as I've found that most things, actually, think about it, all things in life are. Maybe not easy, but usually simple when we look at it with the clear eyes and the right kind of guidance. So I learned this lesson, well, I learned this lesson daily, but the biggest time that I learned this practice was many years ago when I made a huge choice to become a monk. Now, I had wanted to become a monk for quite a number of years, ever since I met my spiritual master. In fact, maybe the second time I met her, I met some monks and some nuns of her monastic order, and I just connected with them in an amazing way. I felt this calling within myself to devote myself to our practice, to service, to the spiritual path. And it wasn't until, boy, I don't know, 7, 10 years later that I actually did it. So now this wasn't like me resisting becoming a monk. It was more of an exploration. But the last thing that happened that had me really discover this practice I'm going to share with you in a new and a powerful way was how I had been resisting something, and I would say struggling with something. And the key to this, to that moment and this practice, is the power of surrender. Now, a lot of times surrender means that we're giving up. Surrender in a battle means that we're giving up to someone who's going to defeat us, right? And it has this kind of lesser than. Now, that's not actually what surrender and the true meaning of surrender is. The true meaning of surrender is doing what we know to do, doing what we know we need to do, but not wanting to do it, right? That's the internal definition of surrender. Knowing we need to do something, we need to make a certain choice, that we need to confront something within ourselves, that we need to talk to someone outside of ourselves. Maybe we don't need to talk to someone, we need to take some kind of action. And we know somewhere inside there is a knowingness that we need to do it, but there's a part of us, and usually a big part of us, that doesn't want to. That is the moment of surrender. Yeah, so for me, there was this moment, this was about 10 years ago now. I had really wanted to date somebody, right? I'd been in a few fantastic relationships in my life up until that point. It had been, like 3 or 5 years since my last relationship. I felt like I was really ready. I wanted companionship. I wanted to explore something. And eventually I kind of, using the power of creation, which I've shared in other videos, I created this fantastic relationship. And it was the most in love I've ever felt in my life. She was perfect in every way for me. It was amazing. We had this amazing connection that we birthed together, and it was just a fantastic experience on every level, logistically, practically, intimately, romantically, physically, emotionally. It was just a wonderful connection. And we were both, she was, I think, 41 and I was like 38 or 37 or something. Anyway, it was like we had both in some ways like waited our whole lives to feel something like this. Now, tragically, you could say, if we're looking at it through the lens of relationship, I ended the relationship after 7 months. And why? Because I knew on a deep level, I would actually not even say a conscious level, that I needed to be a monk. There was something about the relationship that wasn't working for me internally, and I had resisted looking at that in my definition of surrender, doing what we know we need to do, but not wanting to do it. I had known that the monastic path was for me for quite some time, but I didn't want to. But I knew that I needed to. I knew it, right? And so I had this fantastic experience, again, that ended quite tragically, but I surrendered to something that I knew I needed to do. Now, for you, it may not be that profound, and you're definitely not going to be a monk, right? Or a nun. 99.999% of you who watch this, that's not what this is about for you. However, there may be a relationship that you need to end or a relationship that you need to start, right? There might be something that you know you need to do in your relationship with yourself, with your body, around how you eat, around how you feel, around how you even think, right? What is the thing that you know you need to do, but you don't want to do? Now, here's the thing about the surrender. The reason that a lot of us, and including myself, resist doing what we know we need to do is often because there is an unknown out there. Or, secondly, we think we know what the experience is going to be, but it's based on a prior experience of ourselves in the world that was maybe unpleasant or painful, right? And we have this association with the unknown, that it's bad, or that it's scary, or that we're going to get hurt by it, or that somehow we're going to end up worse off than we were, right? And that's usually based from childhood, and it was an experience that we didn't have necessarily, let's say, control or mastery over, because we weren't adults. We didn't have a fully developed brain, and our consciousness wasn't developed. Our psyche wasn't developed. We were just different people, right? Here's another quick example from me. I was a very pushy young child, and at the age of 6, I was at Disney World with my parents, and I made my mom. I was like, "Mom, I want to go to Space Mountain. I want to do." I mean, it was so cool. If you've never been to Space Mountain, it's still quite amazing. It's a little old, but you go into this giant dome, and it's just stars, and then there's presumably this roller coaster, this ride, how I had thought, that takes you like through space. And I was like, "I want to do it." And she was like, "Okay." And we wait in line, we get in, and then we sit down, and it locks us in, and it starts to kind of like pick up a little bit of speed as you go. And I remember looking to my mom, and I was like, "Mom, I don't want to do this anymore." And my mom looks at me, and she goes, "It's too late now." And we kind of hang on, and I had a traumatic experience. Right. I mean, it was way more than my pure little sweet mind and emotionally attuned childlike place of being could handle. I mean, I totally got traumatized. I freaked out. I was screaming and crying. My poor mom, couldn't do anything about it. I'm sure she was in great pain. I don't remember what happened afterwards, but I was freaked out. I tried going on roller coasters and like little rides at like local fairs growing up, and I would freak out in front of my adolescent friends, and then they would make fun of me. So I would never do it. I mean, it was total trauma. Then at the age of, I think, like 35, I went back to Disney World with some colleagues. We were there for a conference, and they're psychologists, and we talked about it. And this guy was like, "You got to do it, man. You're a different person. You got a new brain. Everything's new." And I was like, "It feels okay. I think I could do it." And I went on the ride and had a great freaking time. At the end, I was like, wow, it was like, I was really screaming sometimes. And then it was like almost at the edge, but didn't go over the edge. And it was like very scary. They're like, "Yeah, that's it." And I was like, "Oh, got it." So anyway, there's a little vignette, hopefully somewhat entertaining, around how you can jump into the unknown when you have this knowingness that you know that you could do it, but there's a part of you that doesn't want to, right? So look at for your life something that you don't really want to face, something that you don't really want to do, but somewhere inside, what it is that you've got to do. And let me know how it goes for you. All my best.